Braddock has seen better days. Once a bustling town of 25,000, it's home to the nation's first Carnegie Library and his first steel mill. Deindustrialization and drugs took their toll on Braddock, and only about 3,000 souls call Braddock home today. John Fetterman wasn't born there. He went there to help. He went there through AmeriCorps teaching GED classes. He quickly fell in love with what he calls the malignant beauty of the place and stayed. He started his family there. He was elected mayor, re-elected mayor, fought every day to make his home, his place, remake it. His passion for his place is complete, and he literally carries with him the reminders of the importance of his work. And he doesn't usually bring this up. He has people ask by through the tattoos on his arm, which note the date of the murders of the young people in Braddock while he was mayor. We've asked the mayor to come here today to talk about his love of Braddock and how that informs the work he does. Mayor John Fetterman went to the other decent university in the area, Harvard, where he earned a master's degree in public policy from JFK School of Government. A two-term so far, Mayor Braddock, he's become the symbol of reinvigorating our neglected urban places across the country. Folks, Mayor John Fetterman.
A, B, C. Okay, great. Okay. So how many people, let's show a raise of hands, thought I was the security guard for the event? I'm actually the speaker. It's nice to see Bill McKibben. You wouldn't normally assume that a small town mayor from Pennsylvania would have kind of a connection with Bill McKibben. Aside from being fairly recent guests on Real Time with Bill Mark, we also share the commonality that a couple of years ago, he invited me to participate in his 10-10-10 program as a part of 350.org, which I, of course, was not able to participate in because, coincidentally, his wife, who I guess he's celebrating at this very moment, was in town going after him with a rusty razor, and she's a journalist, so conflict of interest there. So, wish them well on their anniversary. Anyway, so yes, I am the mayor of Braddock, Pennsylvania, and as Rob pointed out, we are a community that has definitely seen better times. Our old slogan is, reinvention is the only option, and that really has served us well. But I'm going to kind of, anyone familiar with the show Game of Thrones on HBO? And I'm stealing their slogan, and that slogan is called "The climb is all there is." And that really, to me, sums up the last 10 years of the work that I've done, where it's like progress is all relative. It's just the work of trying to get it better and move things along. So without any further ado, let's get started. Technical issue. Can everyone see the screen? So why is Braddock famous? Why is Braddock an important place in this country's history? Well, first of all, it's where the French and Indian War started. General Edward Braddock, who was a British general who thought a little bit too much of his own skills and abilities and that of his troops, went in there to go kick some French ass and some Native Americans, and it didn't work out so well for him. Over 600 of his troops were massacred at our communities, where our present-day community is, and that's where we got our town's name. So we were named after a murdered British general, so already we're off to a shaky start. Also, the primary thing that defines Braddock, that's the only reason why Braddock currently exists, is that, as it was pointed out, it was home of Andrew Carnegie's first steel mill. This was a revolutionary product and a revolutionary mill because it employed what was known as the Bessemer technique, which allowed the strengthening and the purification of steel, which allowed it to build skyscrapers and other things that helped usher in the modern world. So Andrew Carnegie, still by many estimates, was the richest man that ever lived on relative terms. And it's worth noting that he got his start right in our community. And today's Silicon Valley, well, that was last century's Silicon Valley, the Monongahela Valley. And that's what Braddock looked like. If you stripped away the top label and put New York or Chicago or any other city, people wouldn't take issue with it. But that's what our community looked like back in 1955, kind of at that post-World War II apex. If you look at the kind of businesses and how dense it was, Braddock was the original prototypical walkable community before we all knew how desirable that was, predating the suburbs. Think of the density involved here. Braddock is 2/3 of a square mile with 20,000 people living in it, and it still had 14 furniture stores in that space. Modern day density of today's Brooklyn and New York. And this is what happened in 2012. You've had a complete implosion of everything that makes a community a community. 90% of our population left. Our population went from around 20,000 to, according to the 2010 census, 2,300. So I say this, I don't try to sound smart or flip, but it's true. 90% of our community is in a landfill. Because when you lose 90% of your buildings and businesses and population, those buildings will eventually fall into disrepair and come tumbling down. And that's why Braddock is the poorest community in the region. If you look at those numbers, it's very daunting. Pennsylvania, which is not exactly known as a wealthy state, almost 3 times the number of amount of household income compared to the United States margin. This is not a I mean, I'm in Boston. Look at the median home price. Yeah. That's a gym membership in Boston. You leave a zero off, and it's like $4,800 for a house. My own home, I bought for $2,000. It was an abandoned warehouse. And again, unemployment generally runs 200, twice the national average. This is what Braddock looks like. You see on the left these amazing architectural gems of what Braddock used to look like, and then you see what's left, a scarred landscape because that building unfortunately had to be torn down. This is another example of Braddock property. What's really sad about this picture is that this building wasn't in the process of being torn down. It actually just fell down by itself after a nice strong thunderstorm. So not only is 90% of it in a landfill, the remaining 10% ain't exactly what you'd call, prime real estate either. When I took office in 2000, I won the primary in 2005. I did a search with Google on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, which is the paper of record for Allegheny County, and I pulled up these random headlines. I didn't cherry pick them. I didn't set out to create something that make a dramatic statement, but Braddock was primarily known at that point for violence, drugs, and a place that you didn't want to go to unless you were looking for trouble. And then, as not enough challenges, in 2009, the last of Braddock's crown jewels, our hospital, which was 270,000 square feet, had been in our community since 1906, announced that it was closing, taking 600 jobs and proximate access to health care for our residents all in one fell swoop. And that's what it looks like. Put that in perspective, 270,000 square feet is about twice the size of your average Walmart on our main thoroughfare in a community that's 2/3 of a square mile. I mean, is that in Braddock, Pennsylvania, or is that in Syria, or another war-torn nation? Because that's what it looked like on our main thoroughfare. So that really brings us to what's Braddock's unique problem, and that is, what can be done, if anything, for a community that lost 90% of everything that identified itself as a community. And here's what we did. We set out to restore and save what we had remaining of Braddock's architecture. The stained glass in this picture is the brand new window and represented the first time that a stained glass window was going into a church in our community as opposed to being taken out of a community. We engaged our youth. Unemployment during the summer among our youth ranged anywhere upward as high as 75% unemployment. So you can imagine young people without anything constructive to do, no legal income, and then of course when we took office there weren't any functional playgrounds in the community, caused a lot of problems. We employed 100 kids during the summer, which if you put that on a per capita basis would be as if the city of Pittsburgh hired 10,000 kids to work. And in some cases, and it's the sad but true, their paycheck during the summer often was the only paycheck coming into some of the households. We took abandoned homes and restored them. These two particular homes went to provide foster housing for foster kids that have exited the system that would have otherwise been rendered homeless. This was the largest lot on our main thoroughfare. As you can see, it looks like an urban jungle, but you can also see how amazing the architecture is there. So we set out to come back what the avenue looked like, and we put in the area's first functioning playground for many, many years in our community. This was the other side of that lot. That was an old JCPenney store that had to be torn down because it started falling down on people. And then we replaced it again with playhouses that have been fully embraced and utilized by the community. This was one of the 13 or 14 hotels that was in Braddock. Again, unfortunately, went past the point of no return. And then we put in a 2-acre urban farm that provides jobs for our young people. It provides fresh produce because Braddock is a food desert. I tell this anecdote. I was at a TED Talk in Harlem, and folks in Harlem called Harlem a food desert. And I stayed in Harlem, and I was in a beautiful loft hotel, and I walked to a Starbucks in 30 seconds out of it. So that's not a food desert in my mind. A food desert is a place like Braddock that doesn't have a grocery store, and your main food that's readily accessible is a bag of Cheetos and a can of soda. This was